Today, we are not here because the world has become peaceful. We are also not here because humanity has found all the answers. We are here because, deep inside, many people are sharing the same feeling. Unease. Unease is not always caused by illness, not always by lack or poverty, but because the mind is tired, unstable, and no longer as grounded as it once was. The world is changing very fast, faster than the human mind can adapt, and in that gap, tension arises, fear arises, doubt arises. A great deal of suffering is not loud, but silently accumulates. We know many things. We know about material progress, technology, and connection. Yet we struggle with our own emotions. A single piece of bad news or an unintentional comment can disturb the mind for an entire day. We can send information across great distances, but we do not know how to stay with ourselves when anxiety appears. That is why we often think the problem lies outside, that if circumstances change, if the world becomes more stable, then our minds will be at peace. But reality shows otherwise. Some people live in very difficult conditions and still remain mentally steady. Others have everything, yet their minds are constantly tense. This shows that circumstances are not the whole story. Fear itself is not wrong. Fear is a survival response. But when fear lingers, spreads, and takes over the inner space, it no longer protects us. It begins to exhaust us. What is important to notice is this: most fear does not live in the present moment, but in an imagined future. Things that might happen are created by the mind as if they were already real, and the body responds accordingly. The heart races, the breath shortens, the mind contracts. This is not anyone's fault. It is simply that the mind has not been trained. We are taught how to change the world, but rarely how to observe how our own mind operates. When the mind is panicked, even correct information becomes a burden. When the mind is more stable, people know how to filter, how to pause, how to act wisely. The core issue of our time is not only medical, economic, or social crises, but that the human mind is overloaded. Too much information, too many assumptions, too many uncertainties. The mind is accustomed to continuity and predictability, yet now it must live within prolonged uncertainty. When uncertainty is not understood correctly, it turns into fear. But there is one important thing that must be clearly seen. Suffering does not lie entirely in emotion, but in attachment to emotion. Emotions arise and pass. It is identification. I am this fear. I am this anger that allows them to stay and grow. If there is even a brief moment to pause and see, this is fear, then at that moment, its intensity already begins to change. That pause may be very small, just a single breath, but it creates a significant difference, not because the world becomes less complex, but because we are no longer immediately swept away. Returning to observe the mind is not escaping life. It is a very practical act, because in the same circumstances, a panicked person collapses, while a person with a grounded mind moves through. We have come very far in caring for the body, but caring for the mind is still in its early stages. When the body is in pain, we know to see a doctor. When the mind is in pain, we often endure it silently, or try to cover it with busyness. But the mind also needs to be understood, rested, and trained, not to become someone else, but to see more clearly what is actually happening. And when one person becomes less fearful, less reactive, the shared space naturally becomes easier to breathe in. No grand ideals are necessary. Each person simply needs to not make the world more crowded with their own inner unrest. The world may continue to be unstable, but if each person learns not to further disturb their own mind, much unnecessary suffering will come to an end. And perhaps that is enough to continue walking forward.